Okay, so like everyone knows by now the US and the EU are kind of, well, they're at it again, right, with these tariffs.
Yeah, it seems like we can't go too long without some kind of trade spat brewing between these two economic powerhouses.
Exactly. And today we're gonna really dig into what's going on with this whole tariff thing. We've got the CBS News article. It's like really fresh, it just came out, and it's talking about how things are getting a little bit heated, let's say.
Yeah, whiskey wars is the term they're using, which I have to say is pretty catchy.
Right. It does make you think about like, your Friday night drinks and stuff.
It really does. I mean, for a lot of folks, this is going to hit them right where it hurts, their wallets.
Yeah. So let's maybe like break this down a little bit. I mean, what tariffs exactly? I feel like everyone throws that word around, but
Right, it can get kind of confusing.
yeah.
So, in the most basic terms, a tariff is a tax on goods that are imported from another country.
Okay, so it's like you're buying something from, let's say, France, and the U.S. government slaps an extra tax on it.
Exactly. And the reasons why countries use tariffs are actually pretty varied. It can be to protect their own industries.
Right. So if like the U.S. makes a lot of, you know, I don't know, shoes or something, and they don't want people buying cheaper shoes from overseas, they might put a tariff on those imported shoes.
Exactly. It levels the playing field, or at least tries to.
Okay, that makes sense. But it also sounds like this CBS article is saying it's not always that simple, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a whole strategy thing going on
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. It can get very strategic. Think of it like a chess game. Countries are constantly making moves and counter moves using tariffs as bargaining chips.
Bargaining chips. So it's like they're trying to get something from the other country by using these tariffs.
Exactly. And in this case, it seems like the EU might be making a pretty bold move. This CBS article is saying they just increased the tariff on American whiskey to 50%.
Whoa, 50%? That's like half the price of the bottle right there.
It is a significant increase, and it's definitely got people talking.
Well, and not everyone is happy about it either. This article quotes Ursula von der Leyen.
Hmm.
She's like the head honcho over at the European Commission, and she's saying basically that these tariffs are bad for everyone.
Yeah, she's basically saying, we deeply regret this measure. Tariffs are taxes. They're bad for business and worse for consumers.
Which kind of makes you think like, well, if they regret it so much, why are they doing it?
It's a good question, and it really gets to the heart of the issue. I mean, is this a retaliatory move by the EU? Are they responding to something the U.S. did?
Oh, yeah, that's right. This whole thing didn't just come out of nowhere, did it?
Not at all. There's a
No.
lot of history here. And to really understand what's happening with these whiskey tariffs, we need to look at the bigger picture.
Okay, yeah, let's rewind a bit then. So, like, what's been going on between the U.S. and the EU that might have led to this whole whiskey tariff thing?
Well, one thing to remember is that President Trump, he's been a big proponent of using tariffs as a negotiating tool throughout his presidency.
Right, he's like not shy about using them.
Not at all. In fact, a while back, he actually imposed these tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. And, a lot of those were coming from the EU.
Oh, so that kind of ticked them off.
Yeah, you could say that. And in response, the EU, they hit back with their own set of tariffs on American goods, which included things like, motorcycles and orange juice.
Motorcycles and orange juice, huh? Seems kind of random.
Well, it's all part of this tit for tat, this back and forth that happens in trade disputes. Each side is trying to find leverage.
So basically, those tariffs on steel and aluminum from like a while back, they kind of set the stage for what we're seeing now with the whiskey.
It's all connected. These trade disputes, they rarely happen in isolation. There's often a ripple effect.
Wow, so this is like a whole saga unfolding.
You could say that, and things might be about to get even more interesting.
What do you mean?
Well, the CBS article, it mentions how President Trump, he's not exactly taking this whiskey tariff lying down. In fact, he's fired back with the threat of his own.
Oh boy,
Mm-hmm.
what's he threatening now?
Get this, he's talking about slapping a 200% tariff on European wines, champagnes, all sorts of alcoholic beverages.
100%. Are you serious? That's like insane.
It's a huge escalation, and it really shows just how tense things are getting between the U.S. and the EU.
So like, hold on, if that actually happens, that means like my glass of wine with dinner is going to cost like 3 times as much.
It's definitely a possibility, and that's just the direct impact we have to think about the potential ripple effects, too.
Ripple effects meaning like what exactly?
Well, for starters, this kind of move, it could trigger a chain reaction with the EU retaliating even further. And then who knows where it ends? We could be looking at a full-blown trade war.
Okay, yeah, that doesn't sound good, like at all.
It's a scenario that a lot of economists are worried about trade wars. They create a lot of uncertainty in the market, which can have huge ripple effects throughout the economy.
So it's not just about like, more expensive wine. It's like the whole economy could get messed up.
Exactly. Think about it. If prices on imported goods skyrocket, consumers might start buying less. Businesses that rely on those imports, they could struggle. And even jobs could be at stake.
Okay. Yeah, now I'm starting to see why this whole tariff thing is such a big deal.
It goes way beyond just individual products. It's about the interconnectedness of the global economy, how everything is linked.
So like one country makes a move with tariffs and then another country retaliates and then it's like a domino effect.
Exactly. And it's hard to predict where those dominoes will fall.
Man, this is like a real life thriller unfolding, except the stakes are like, people's livelihoods and stuff.
It's a high stakes game, and it really raises these fundamental questions about, how countries should interact on the global stage.
Right. Like, are tariffs actually an effective way to negotiate trade deals, or are they just going to end up hurting everyone involved?
That's the million-dollar question, and there are no easy answers.
So what's like the takeaway for our listener here? I mean,
Mm.
what should they be thinking about after listening to all of this?
I think the most important thing is to just pay attention to what's happening with these trade disputes.
Right, because it's not just like some abstract thing. It can actually affect their lives.
Exactly. The decisions that governments make, they can have very real consequences for everyone, from the price of your favorite drinks to, the stability of the entire economy.
Wow. So it's like we all have a stake in this.
In a way, yes. And that's why it's so important to not just, take things at face value, dig deeper, look at different perspectives, and really think critically about the arguments being made on both sides.
That's a great point. There's always more to the story than what you see in the headlines.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think this has been a super informative deep dive. Thanks for breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure.
And for our listeners out there, keep those questions coming because this whole tariff thing, it's probably not going away anytime soon.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Something
better.
we'll be watching closely.
And with that said, thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See you then.